One of the biggest problems right now in the world is there's a lack of creativity. There's a lack of individual thought. Something that I want to get clear to you, right, is that in a sense, we're all fucking sheep. I'm a sheep, you're a sheep, we're all sheep. We all follow each other to the slaughter, man. We're all, getting fattened up, right? And we're getting fattened up by people's opinions, people's thoughts, people's own self beliefs, limiting self beliefs at that, people's negativity. We're fucking overstimulated. We're on constant information overload. You have access to this little device, right? Which is like a mirror, and you could open up these bullshit ass apps where people are spewing out more bullshit, and this could affect your entire thought process and how you view life if you let it. And more oftentimes we not than not, we let it. So what I wanted to talk about today is how do we create independent thought? Basically, essentially a video on how to think for yourself. You know, this is something I struggle with myself, which is why I wanted to go ahead and create it. And all these videos that I come up with, these are all things that I've gone through. So I'm no different than you guys. If you guys are having this trouble, if you guys are having trouble finding creativity, then this video is going to be for you. How do we create our own individual thought, our own perspectives, and how do we pinpoint where most of our thoughts come from, right? So I want to tell a little story first. When I was growing up, I had a mentor, through YouTube, who would always say, most men are parrots. And what he meant by that is most men just regurgitate what other men think and believe and do not have their own beliefs, their own thoughts. They're just regurgitating what other men think. He said that they are on the parrot level. And then he followed that up with, at one point, we are all on the parrot level. And back then, I was younger when I heard that. I was about 16, 17. And now I'm 22. I understand what he means. I totally understand what he means. When you talk to people in your day to day, most people don't have anything different to offer, like in perspective. And I found that most people's opinions and thoughts are shaped by social media, and you'll find a lot of men saying the same thing straight up. I noticed this with women. Like when talking about women, most men say the same thing, okay? And they'll go along the lines of, well, I'm not tall enough. I'm 5'8", but I'm not tall enough. I'm not 6 feet, so I can't get a girl. Like, bro, what? Like that comes from a limiting belief of another man. That's not even your own thought. There's dudes out there, 5'4", 5'3", that are pulling badass hoes, you know. So that's one thing. That's just an example. And I hear it a lot in that specific space when it comes to dating. And this is not a dating channel, so I don't want to go too in depth with it. But that is something, that is something I definitely do hear. That is a limiting belief that I've always heard. Or another one, you know, she don't want me because I don't have money. Like, or women, they only want money and want to use you for your money. Yeah, if you let them, if you let them, yeah, they will, of course. Like, who wouldn't, you know, if you're a piece of shit, of course. So, with that being said, those are all limiting beliefs from other men who have gotten their heart broken, who have ignored signs from bad women, who, quite frankly, just had bad experiences, bad perspectives, because there's men on the other side of the spectrum that will have good experiences and good perspectives to share, right? But most men, if you go on your day to day and you ask them, about women, those are things that they will say. Well, I don't have a supercar. I'm not this tall. I'm not this shredded. I don't have abs. I don't, this and this and that. Just negativity. The first step to creating your own perspectives, your own thoughts is disconnecting. You need to disconnect from the metaverse, from the internet. You need to find something that you're passionate about that will take up your time so you're not idle, which is doing nothing and just scrolling on your phone or listening to YouTube videos. That way you could find your own voice, right? Back then, I had to self reflect. After I went over the heartbreak, which I talked about in a previous video, I had to dig deep within myself and disconnect from the world. I wanted to go into the scriptures and study them extensively, but I wanted to have a fresh mind on it. I did not want other men's opinions. I didn't want other men's thoughts. I didn't want other men's perspectives on things. I wanted to read the scriptures plainly for what they were. So I disconnected my mind from what I grew up from, the Catholic Church, me and specifically Christianity, and I wanted to read what was exactly in front of me, right? So I spent that whole year reading exactly what was in front of me, the scriptures for what they were plainly, not listening to other men's ideas, not listening to other men's perspectives, not listening to other men's thoughts, but I wanted to read it for myself with a clear mind. And that also meant I did not watch other content pertaining to certain life perspectives on women, on business, on things like that. That way I could reprogram my mind to have a fresh, clean slate on what the scriptures actually said, which is my personal foundation. And this allowed me to then reflect on the scriptures. So I had a moral compass to look at and then say, okay, this doesn't line up with the scriptures, but this idea or this concept might. So let me explore it more, right? And when I did this, I disconnected from everything, and it was just natural. I didn't force it. I didn't say, okay, Hernan, you're not gonna you're not gonna look at any social media. You're not gonna look at any YouTube. No, I understood that I'm gonna do this. That way, I could truly gain an understanding of the scriptures, of who I am, and I could reflect and look back at all the limiting ideas, limiting beliefs that I have got from other people, right? Another thing, you need to have your own code. Me, I follow the scriptures. So I'm able to look at the scriptures and see, okay, the scriptures say this, therefore I'm not going to do that. Let's use adultery, for example, right? Many men will tell you, well, damn, you know, um, this woman who's taken, she want me. And another man might say, well, damn, bro, you should just knock it down because she wants you. You know, if I were look at the scriptures, that's adultery. So I have my own moral code to know I'm not gonna go smash another man's girl. First of all, you know, it, like, come on, bro. There's so many women out there, and you're gonna go ahead and do that. Like, have some fucking decorum, bro. Have some self respect. Why are you taking another man's woman? Go get your own woman. You know. But you need to have your own code. You need to have ethics. You need to create your own code because there's some things that might make you feel disrespected that might not make another man feel disrespected, right? For example, I have my own codes when it comes to dealing with women, right? With women, I couldn't even tell you where I got this from, but it's just something that I know I used previously. I will not let a woman walk in front of me. If I'm dealing with this woman, I will not let her walk in front of me. She has to walk by my side, not behind me, not in front of me. And when I walk with people in general, I make sure they're on my side. I don't want to be looking back at them and I don't want to be looking forward at them. I don't want to be facing their back. I want to be able to look to my right or look to my left and be able to talk to them on an eye to eye level and have that eye contact. With women, especially, they need to be by my side, not behind me, not in front of me, and me guiding the path and leading them, right? Those are little things that comes with time, and it comes with experience, and it comes with, understanding different situations. Other boundaries that you might set, are certain words that can or cannot be used in a relationship, right? And I use a relationship because it's the easiest thing. I don't like people calling me dumbass. I don't like people saying fuck you to me. If it's jokingly, I don't care, but how you deliver something, tone definitely does matter. Um, things like that, those are boundaries. Certain men don't have boundaries, They won't speak up if something makes them feel bad or something makes them feel disrespected. You have to have your own code. You have to. And if you don't know your own code or you don't know how to figure it out, grab a notebook, grab a pen, and ask yourself, what makes me feel disrespected? What is something that I would, let's use a relationship for example. What is something that I would not tolerate a woman doing to me? For example, I'm not gonna tolerate someone slapping me. Fuck, I would not even want to be in that situation. If I'm being dead ass honest with you, if I'm getting slapped, I'm either doing something wrong or the bitch is crazy. It's just straight up what it is. You know, another thing, you write out this list and then you apply it to all different personal dynamics, things that you would not let slide, things that you wouldn't let yourself do either, right? For me, like I said, within my own code, I know I won't go take another man's woman knowingly. If it happens unknowingly because women do lie, I'll repent very quickly. That's just reality. Some women will lie to you and, you know, cause you to commit adultery, cheat and all that. And next you know, you're the dude who took someone else's girl, which is fucked up. But those are certain little things, right? Another thing, I do not let others try to dictate to me what the scripture says and doesn't say if I know they're not learned. When you read the Bible, and everybody who reads the Bible will understand that people in other religions, Christianity, Catholicism, will try to tell you what the Bible says without having ever to read the Bible. You know, without having ever read the Bible. Straight up. And many people do this in life in general. They will try to give you perspectives and ideas and opinions on shit they've never done themselves. It doesn't make any sense. So why should I take their word for what they're saying and not prove it? You know what I mean? Do not let other people try to dictate what you should do and shouldn't do. It's as simple as that. Have your own code, follow your own code, and make sure you keep it and don't break it for anybody. You know. Number 3, embrace solitude. Within, disconnecting from the metaverse, I embrace solitude. I spend a lot of time by myself. Every day after work, I would lift, I would read the scriptures, and I would turn on an audio Bible. That way I could read the scriptures and hear them over and over and over again in my head. And I would take notes. That way I could keep the information down, right? And then I would take long walks where I would go pray and meditate on the word that I just read and just ask the Lord different things. And within these walks, I would have my own think sessions, think about different things that was happening on in my life, think about during this time, reflect on the heartbreak that I had just went through and figure out different things. I had to ask myself a lot of questions during those times. I had to ask myself, okay, how did this relationship fall the way it did? How did it fail the way it did? What happened to me that that made the relationship crash, because the blame is always going to be back on the man. You know, where did I fail? What did I do wrong? For me in my own relationship, I got too comfortable. I got exposed, because that's what comfort will do to you. It will expose you, right? So I had to embrace the solitude and find out who I was again, because in that I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was no more. I knew certain aspects. I knew that I read the scriptures. I followed the Most High. I knew that I used to work out, so I was not overweight. Now I had to lose all that weight and, really bust my ass and prove to myself, I am disciplined. I am diligent. I can do it all over again, right? In solitude, you're going to find your own creative thoughts. You're going to find out who you are, and the noise around you just gets quiet. Separate yourself, put on your fucking headphones, turn off the world around you, and really dig deep and sit down with yourself. Most people are afraid of themselves. They're afraid of who they truly are. They're afraid to be alone without anybody else around them, because they're scared of what they're going to discover about themselves. If you want to make your own code, if you want to create your own independent thought, you need to embrace solitude. You need to spend time by yourself. And I'm not talking about just when you're driving home from work and you're in the car by yourself listening to music. I'm talking about when you're sitting down. For me, this is when I sit down at a coffee shop and I just sit there and I think. Or when, for me, like I said before, go around your fucking block for a walk. Just go on a walk. Just think. You know, for me, I would pray. I would give thanks to the Most High. And then after that, I would go ahead and think upon my life, reflect, and I would come back home with clarity most times about the things that was going on in my life, right? Embrace solitude. Number 4. Now, in this man space, self-improvement space, a lot of people say embrace monk mode, embrace monk mode. I've done that shit multiple times in my life. That shit does work, for a season. It does, but don't force it. If you feel called to separating yourself from other people, that way you could have your own, independent thought, so you could create your own things without anybody else's input. Embrace that shit. That's a season of solitude. But if you're in a season where you have this great inner circle around you and you have these people around you that you love, that you could trust, really men, brothers, talk to them. Be vulnerable with them, because sometimes there are things that they're going to be able to see that you cannot. It's happened so many times with my brothers that I'll say something, a limiting belief that I have about myself that I didn't notice, but it's once I talk and once they ask me certain questions that they're able to now break me down, and they're going to be like, okay, this is where the root of the problem is. You think this in your head and you don't realize it. And that shit has happened so many times to me. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable how many times that's happened to me. So you need to be around other men who are like-minded, who are going to be able to ask you questions, tough questions, that are going to allow you to open up. And this is going to allow you to truly express what you think and what you feel. And they're going to be able to catch where you're fucking up. They're going to be able to catch that limiting belief that you have. They're going to be able to catch, the doubts that you have. And you're going to be able to hear it yourself. And you're going to be like, okay, that's what I'm really feeling. That's what's going on inside of me. Because sometimes you're not going to be able to figure it out on your own. So you need other like-minded men around you to ask you the tough questions. That way they're able to open you up and then bring out that stuff that, those words that you can't find inside your heart, right? And it's all right to be vulnerable, because a lot of these times you're going to have your greatest realizations, your greatest epiphanies, and you're going to be able to overcome whatever you're going through at that moment, right? And last one, question everything. Everything. The scripture itself implores you to prove what's good and hold fast to it, right? I said it wrong, but you get my point. Prove everything. If someone tells you this is how you bench press, okay, prove that shit. Why are you just gonna believe it? Like a lot of times we do that shit unknowingly. Like we just take someone else's word and we're like, okay, well, yeah, that's the truth, and yeah, that's cool, and we don't prove it. Oftentimes what I do is when I'm looking up things on different exercises and stuff like that, is I will take inspiration, I will do it their way, and then I will optimize it for myself. That way I know what works for me, and that's how I create my own individual exercises sometimes. That's how I create my own ways of thinking, is I take inspiration, I try it their way, and then I go ahead and do it my way, or I adjust their ways and then optimize it for myself. Because some things are just not going to work for you. For example, I'm not one to tell everybody you should get up at 4 a.m. This is going to make you the most disciplined person ever. No, no. I get up, me personally, I get up between 4 and 4:30 because it maximizes who I am. I'm even considering doing 3:30 because it will maximize my creative thought. It will maximize my time of solitude, because there's just something about being alone in the morning when it's still dark out that I'm able to think, I'm able to come up with better ideas, I'm able to write in peace, and the world around me is quieted down, and I'm able to do those things. Don't just do shit that is called productive to feel productive, right? I wake up at those times because it's optimized for me. If you're someone who needs to get up at 10 a.m. and you don't have restrictions for the job, and you're just you're someone that needs to go to sleep later because you get more shit done in the night, do what's best for you, right? Question these routines, question what you're listening, question me, question my videos, question other content creators that you're listening to. Where are you, what space are you talking from? What kind of perspective are you talking from what experience are you talking from? you know and then always look back at your own code. Does this line up with my code? Is this applicable for me? Because sometimes you might take shit on that's just not applicable for you, right? So do things that optimize you, that are going to optimize your productivity, that are going to optimize your own independent thought, right? So if I want to leave any lasting you know thoughts and ideas, start with today. Question yourself, right? Question question who you are. Ask yourself, who am I? Ask yourself, what type of attributes that I have about myself that make me different from other people, right? Me compared to the average person, I'm disciplined, I'm diligent, I'm motivated, I can motivate, I could inspire other people through my words. I could, you know, I'm relentless. If I see something I desire, I go after that shit. And I've fallen so many times. I failed so many different times. That's just something that I know I am. I'm not gonna go into the rest. And ask yourself, where did these things come from? How did I become resilient? Resilient. How did I become relentless? How did I become diligent? How did I become disciplined? You know, what are my perspectives on women? What are my perspectives on food? Where do they come from? Because you're gonna often find that most shit doesn't even come from yourself, right? Like, for example, I'll leave another example. Um, the food industry, fitness, or yeah, fitness industry, right? Everybody tell you to count your calories. Count your calories. You need to count your calories. You want to lose weight, you need to count your calories. You need to count them. Don't forget to count your fucking calories today. That works for some people. I've done it and it has worked for me. In this season, I don't want to do that shit. I refuse to do that shit. I started to question it. I was like, wait a minute. If I can't lose weight without fucking counting my calories, that means I have to be dependent on the fucking phone to count my shit. So that means if I don't have a fucking scale next to me to measure my food, I'm fucked. Like straight up, like I'm just asked out if I want to lose weight, and I refuse to live like that. I did it for a season back then. For those that do it, it does work. It does work. I don't want to do it this time around. So I started to question that way of thinking in the fitness industry, and I have found that if you increase your protein intake, you're going to increase your metabolism, and you're going to be able to speed up your system, so that way you're in a constant body recomposition. And that's what I found, and that's what I've been taught by another mentor of mine as well. So I I took on his style, I adjusted it and optimized it for who I am, and I found that it does work. So, you know, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else for y'all. Create your own thoughts, sit down with yourself, ask yourself the tough questions. And as I continue to make videos, I will start to pose different questions to you guys. All right? Peace.